Kia ora. The sermon today is in two parts, really. I want to read you first a little story. It comes from Arnold Lepel's book called Grasshopper on the Road. Grasshopper came to a puddle of water in the road. He was just about to hop over the puddle. "Wait!" cried a tiny voice. Grasshopper looked down. The edge of the puddle was a mosquito. He was sitting in a little boat. "It's a rule," said the mosquito. "You must use this ferry boat to get across the lake." "But sir," said the grasshopper, "I can easily jump over to the other side." "Rules are rules," said the mosquito. "Climb into my boat." "Your boat's too small for me," said Grasshopper. "Rules are rules," said the mosquito. "You must get into my boat." "I can't fit in your boat," said Grasshopper. "Rules are still rules," said the mosquito. "Well then," said Grasshopper, "there's only one thing for me to do. And with that, Grasshopper picked up the boat. "All aboard!" called the mosquito. Grasshopper held the boat very carefully, and he stepped over the puddle and put the mosquito and the boat down on the other side. I like this little story a lot because it gives a perspective on engaging with a stranger, a foreigner, someone who's a bit of a nuisance like a mosquito. I don't think it's any accident that Arnold Lepel chose a well-known pest. And some outsiders want to stop us, prevent us, or divert us from following where we believe goodness, or at least our understanding of goodness, is leading. They are blocking the road, deliberately, sometimes destructively. Grasshopper's on a journey, and when he is confronted by that dogmatic mosquito, the mosquito's world is bounded by the lake, a lake that he must control. And the only way for Grasshopper to continue on his journey is, according to Mosquito, to reduce himself to fit into Mosquito's boat. And as the illustrations in the children's book show, it's patently absurd. But the mosquito's vision is bounded by the lake. And the only way, sorry about this little contraption that just makes a noise, and then I have to find a way to turn it off. Mosquito's vision is bounded by the lake. The mosquito's religion is lake religion, and the only way is to be saved is by the boat. This scenario is very common. There are people who write to me and say, there's only one way to God. It's their way. To be a Christian or inclusive, they say, is to stop what I'm doing and follow their rules. That is, they say, the path of unity. It's a very important value for mosquitoes, almost as important as obedience. If I depart from their understanding of Christian religion and values, then I am departing from the way of Christ, they say. So here is the mosquito, part of the wonderful mosaic of planetary life: small boat, small lake, a small God, and a large, insistent voice. How do we keep true to our ethos of inclusion and hospitality without succumbing to the mosquito's agenda, which is to stop us in our tracks? Well, it's tempting to squash them or spray them. Arnold Lepel's Grasshopper finds a way to honor the inner dignity of the mosquito while continuing to be true to his own calling to journey on. Gently lifts the mosquito out of his paradigm and then gently lowers them back again. Mosquito is blind to it. He thinks he's won. His religion, he believes, has saved grasshoppers, got him over the lake. Mosquito stays in his boat and lake, trapped in his worldview, and grasshopper walks on down the road. For some characters, like Mosquito, will not change. Rather, they have to be gently moved to the side or lifted out of the way so that others can move on. I like the grace the grasshopper displays. Grace permeates the story, as does discernment. Discernment is important in ascertaining whether the demand in front of you is a mosquito to be gently put aside, or a compass suggesting a correction to your course. A ministry of inclusive hospitality, vital as it is to our spiritual well-being, requires leadership, ministers and elders, that is both graceful and discerning. Now for the second part of my sermon. The word for church in Greek is called ecclesia, literally called out. I used to drink coffee on Ponsonby Road in a place called Tiggy Boy. Before I even got in the door, my name would be called out. Hiya, Father Glynn! As you can tell from the honorific, Preston, one of the owners, had an Irish Catholic upbringing. Preston told me that if he has served a person 3 coffees and doesn't know that person's name, he's failing in his job. And by hollering out a greeting to each and nearly every customer, he's not only welcoming that person, but sharing their name. Sure beats name tags. I like Tiggy Boy not just because I'm getting old and appreciate things like knowing a barista's name and being known in return. I like the atmosphere that the owners created, Preston and Johnny. Johnny's Brazilian. It was a kind of fun, joking, clowning atmosphere. A bit boysy, admittedly, but often these guys put a smile on my dial. A church, like Tiggy Boy, that puts a smile on the dial, caters for the senses, the look, the atmosphere, the smell, the taste, and calls out your name, not as customer, client, patient, but as Glynn. It's a place where I'd stay a while and come again. Indeed, back then it was worth getting in the car and driving there at lunchtime rather than walking 200 meters down the road. Unfortunately, the cafe is now closed. It's probably another real estate office now. Don't we need more real estate offices? The Bible text for today, well, one of the verses is Matthew 9, verse 9. It's when Jesus calls out Matthew. It says Jesus was walking along and saw Matt in his tax office, and either by looking at him or knowing his name, Jesus said, "Follow me." And Matt got up and left his money and his accounts and all that had given him meaning and value and wealth up to that time. It's a radical conversion. And there's not a peep about all that conservative traditional Christianity stuff like confessing your sins, repenting, penance, believing Jesus is your Lord and Savior, and all that. Rather, it's about Jesus walking, seeing, calling out, and Matthew leaving and following. Tax collectors in Jesus' day were not nice, and we can't suppose that Matt was any different. They weren't generous, forgiving, or kind. kind of snarled probably when they talked, built like front row forwards, or had a couple of lads behind them who fitted that description. For tax collectors were extortionists. Don't think Inland Revenue Department. Think crime gangs. If the Romans and local Jewish rulers wanted, say, 30% of your earnings as tax for them, then they employed collectors. But they didn't pay the collectors. So collectors asked for, say, another 20% of your earnings for themselves. And if they didn't get that total of 50% of your earnings, they beat it out of you. Guess what? Tax collectors were not popular. You didn't want to befriend one or be seen to be friends with a tax collector. Not only were they low life, but they were seen as ungodly. They weren't decent, church-going sort of folk who kept a standard of personal morality or gave to community charities. They didn't believe, and they seemingly didn't care. And they also cuddled up to the Romans, the oppressive occupation forces. They did what the Romans wanted and profited from it. They were betrayers of their race, culture, land, and faith. You would not want your daughter to go out with one. You would never invite one for dinner. Which was the problem? Jesus, the latest popular rabbi in town, the one everyone was talking about and wanted to invite to dinner, had accepted your invitation to dine. But he brought along Matthew and some of Matthew's mates. Uh-oh. Are you really sure you want Jesus in your house? Imagine those verses of Matthew 9, 10, 11. As Jesus sat at dinner in your house, many tax collectors and other undesirables were sitting with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees, fellow Presbyterians, saw this, they said to his disciples, also Presbyterians, "You guys are nuts." Then there is a silence in the text before Jesus pipes up. But note the disciples have no answer. I suspect they thought this was nuts too. Do you really accommodate an undesirable guest like a tax collector? No one trusts him. No one wants him. But he comes as part of this Jesus entourage. What boundaries do you impose? Will he keep to them? What happens if he doesn't? This is risky. There's no easy answers here. Matt, I'm guessing, is also thinking this is nuts. This is a party for nice religious people, and he isn't one of them. He gets the vibe, the "we are nervous around you" vibe. He's tuned to pick up such vibes. He knows you don't want him in your house. He can see through that welcoming, beatific smile. Matt knows how to make people scared, but he doesn't know how to make people like him. He can do fear. He can't do love. But he wants to do love. He wants to believe he can do love. And Jesus makes him believe he can do love. Jesus makes him believe that he's really a diamond despite his roughness. In some ways, the purpose of a church is to embody that belief of Jesus. Church, people who are called out, is to help others believe, you and I believe, that we can do love. No matter how much fear they or we have, or how much others fear them, that can learn and be shown and trusted to do love. Ecclesia, called out, also has a modern meaning. When you call someone out on something, you're inviting them to be true to themselves. That is, true to their true self. Be true to the diamond, not the rough. This sense of called out invites us to imagine that Matt's extortionist ways, his relationships as a tax collector, and the profits gained did not reflect his true self. He was living a lie. The lie that he was happy. The lie that he was successful and fulfilled. For so many people, there's a disconnect between what they do and who they truly are. Sometimes it can lead to living a lie. And all the while it took was a look, and the lie kind of crumbled. Or was it Jesus calling out his name when he had no idea that any self-respecting rabbi would ever bother to know his name? Remember that church of the Tiki Boy Cafe? Putting a smile on your face, an atmosphere that evokes your senses, being called out by your name. Now with this reading we have Church for the Matthews, a place where others believe that no matter how bad or hurt or needy you are, believe you can do love. And in this place they will stand by you when you try and fail, or when others doubt or criticize you. No matter how weak you are, together, this church says, with us, you can be strong. There is a third meaning too in the name Ecclesia, namely that we're called out for a purpose. It's just not a call to welcome and help you belong, or a call that helps you be true to yourself. It's also a call to be something you might not have dreamt of. For church, Ecclesia are a community who call to live a vision. This is the sense of the English-based website, Ecclesia. At one stage it was the biggest Christian website in the UK. And its vision is one of peace and justice and sustainability for people and planet. It's committed to a practical and theoretical investigation of issues, which they describe as thinking without tanks. So church is not just a place of belonging, acceptance, smiles and kindness, or a place of provocative hospitality beyond the boundaries of what is normally acceptable or manageable. Church is also a place where dreams are dreamt, visions are brought to earth, and actions undertaken. To paraphrase the Magnificat, we are called out ultimately for the purpose of pulling the mighty and their self-serving reasoning down from their thrones and lifting up the lowly, the ostracized, and the marginal.